Hello everyone. In today's lab, we will be learning the concept of VPC endpoint. So we will see the working of the VPC endpoint. So VPC endpoint basically enable customer to privately connect to some AWS services that is supported by endpoint and some VPC endpoint services that is powered by AWS private link. So for both the services, you can create endpoint. So if you want to connect with these services, in that case, you need not to use public IP address. You can use only private IP address for the connection purpose. So there are two type of endpoint that is used, interface as well as gateway endpoint. So in today's lab scenario, we will be learning on gateway endpoint, and we will be seeing how you can connect your private instance with S3 bucket, right? So here there are two subnet, public subnet and private subnet. So the public subnet is connected to the internet, but the private subnet is not connected to the internet. This one is locally connected. And you have created one gateway for endpoint gateway. You can see here VPC ID means VPC endpoint ID. So you will connect this subnet with VPC endpoint and you will direct the traffic of this private subnet to the S3 bucket, not via the internet, but via the private communication channel. So what we will be doing in the today's lab, we will create one custom VPC. Inside that VPC, we will create two subnet, one public subnet and one like private subnet. And we will create two EC2 instance, one in public subnet and one in private subnet. And we will access our private subnet instance from the public subnet instance. And then we will connect this private subnet instance to the VPC endpoint and we will access S3 bucket that is created on my AWS platform. So that we will see today. Okay, so first we will create one VPC with two subnet, one public and one private. We will launch two EC2 Linux machine in each subnet, one in public and one in private subnet. We will create one VPC endpoint and we will associate that endpoint with the private subnet. We will select S3 service and we will verify VPC endpoint access to S3, right? So we will see all the things one by one. So I'm going to AWS console window, and what I'll do here, I'll create one custom VPC. So I'll go here, I will create one VPC and more, VPC, and I'm writing here to show that I'm creating VPC for endpoint. Now tenancy will be default, and in the availability zone, I'm just selecting one availability zone. And we need to create one public subnet and one private subnet. So I will select the CIDR block range. And here I am writing 24. So this one is public CIDR block, this one is private CIDR block. We will create EC2 instance in both the CIDR block. NAT gateway, none. I am not connecting VPC endpoint directly from here. I will go and I'll show you how endpoint works. So right now I'm just going to none option. Now just go and create VPC. Okay, so once this VPC will be created, you can go and check. So this one is the VPC I have created right now. Now I'll create EC2 instance inside this VPC. So I'm just going to EC2 and here I will go and launch instance. So public, and I'm writing for showing public EC2 instance for today's lab purpose. I will create one Linux machine of one earlier version, so kernel 4.14. Instance type is t2.micro. Key pair, I will create one key pair and I'll provide here kp end, right? And what I'll do, I will download PAM file and I'll use this later on. Okay, so I'm just downloading this ppk file right now. Okay, after this one, in the network setting, I need to edit this setting, and here I will use VPC. Auto assign public IP should be enabled right now. Now I'll create one security group. I'll allow SSH connection from anywhere. So I am just allowing all traffic from anywhere. Nothing else. Now I'll launch my instance. Now I'll create one EC2 instance in private subnet. So I need to check whether this EC2 instance is created in public subnet or private subnet. This one is created inside this public subnet. Now I'll create one private instance. I will go and I'll launch my instance. So I'm just writing here private END. Again, I will take Linux machine. I will create my key pair kp private end. And I am downloading PEM file of this key pair. Will edit the network setting. I will connect with private subnet. Auto assign public IP should be disabled, and I'll allow SSH connection from anywhere. And apart from that, I will now I will launch this instance. I will connect to my public EC2 instance now. So I will copy public IP address. I will open putty. Or SSH auth. I will browse my KP. Okay, so now I will connect to my private instance. So for that purpose, I want to take a root permission sudo su hyphen. Now after that, I will create one PEM file here for the authentication purpose. So I will provide the same name of the PEM file that I created there, kp private end dot PEM. Okay, now I need to so press I here. So once you press I, you can insert anything here. Now I will open my PEM file. I will copy the complete code from here and I'll paste it. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll press. Okay, so I have created two EC2 instance. So I will connect to one EC2 instance from the other. So here you can see I will use public IP address of this public instance. So I'll copy this public IP address. I will open putty. I'll paste here. SSH auth. I will browse the IP address. So here I need to write EC2-user. So I'm logging into my public instance. Now after this one, I will take root permission sudo su hyphen. Now I will create one PAM file here and I'll copy the content of this PAM file. Copy, I will write kp copied dot PAM. So one VI editor will open. Press I to insert anything inside this VI editor. So I'm just opening this PAM file that is present here. I will control the complete command from there and then I will paste it here. Now after that, what you need to do, you need to press escape. So I'll press escape, WQ, enter. So I'm just I exited from that PAM file. Now I will take root permission for this one. So I'm just writing chmod. So like all the permission, like read, write and access, execute. I will write name kp copied dot PAM. Now I'll try to connect using this PAM file. So I need to go to private instance. I'll go to connect option, go to SSH client and from here copy the command. But remember one thing, you need to use the same PAM file here. So the PAM file name is kpcopy.pam. kp copied dot PAM. Now I'll hit enter. So now I am entered to my private instance. Now I'll take root permission. So right now if I'll try to access S3 bucket, so for that purpose what I need to write, AWS S3 ls. Suppose I just want to see all the buckets that is present inside this my S3 bucket. So it will not allow me to do that. Why? Because I have not configured AWS on this my Linux machine. So first we need to configure AWS. So how I'll do that? Go to AWS, write AWS configure. Now after this one, it will ask few information like your access key ID. So I will go to my account and I'll go to security credential. And here I will generate one access key ID and secret access key ID for me. So right now, if you go down, you can see access key ID I can take. But what I want to do, I need to delete one. Why? Because at a time, we cannot access more than 2 access key ID. So I'm just deleting one. Now I'll create one access key ID and I'll use it today. So don't share your access key ID with someone. So once you use this one, just delete this one. So I will download the CSV file and I'll use this. So access key ID is this one. So I'll copy this ID. Now I'll use here with the connection purpose. So I'll paste here. Now after this it will ask about secret access key ID. So I'll go here, I'll copy this secret key access ID and I'll paste it. After this one it will ask you the default region where you want to which you want to access through this command line interface. So I want to access Mumbai region, so I'm just writing AP South 1. So default output format, I'm just writing JSON here. You can write anything like text, table format, anything you can write there. So now you can see if I'll try to write here AWS S3 LS, so it will not allow me to access here. Why? Because I have created my private instance and private instance cannot be connected to any other services, right? So S3 is a global service, so you are not allowed to connect here. So what we need to do that first, we need to create one endpoint. So just go here, go to endpoint. So try to select endpoint here. So I'm just writing endpoint 1. I will go and select. So I'm just keeping the network gateway itself. Okay, so we need to use endpoint, not endpoint services. I need to go and select endpoint from here. I will create one endpoint. I'm just writing name as endpoint 1. So I'm just going to access AWS services and that service is S3 service. So here you can filter out the service. So endpoint type is interface as well as gateway. So as I told you, we will be using gateway service. So if you go and check here, there are only two services available, DynamoDB and S3 bucket. So I'll go and I'll select S3 bucket service here in the gateway service. I will select VPC as my VPC endpoint, a new custom VPC that I have created. And inside that VPC, I will use private subnet. So I'm just using this private routing table also. Now I will allow full access here. Nothing else, I will create my endpoint. So my endpoint is created. If you will try to see here, now I'm able to access list of the bucket that is created in S3 service. So now I'm able to see that. Suppose I'm just writing AWS S3 LS. So I'm able to see here. Okay, so why I am able to see that? Just go to the routing table information here and go the private routing table and see the routes information. If you go and you check the routes information, you can see here one route is local route is available and other route is route through internet gateway, right? This one is provided here, so that's why we are able to access through the internet, through the endpoint gateway. So now if I delete this gateway, right, then what will happen? So I'm just going to action and delete VPC endpoint. So again, if I will try to, okay, so if I'll try to write here AWS S3 LS, I will not be able to see the list of the bucket that is available inside this S3 service. Why? Because I have removed that gateway. Now I'll show you if you want to create gateway again and I want to make some bucket inside that service, so I will be able to do that. So I'm just writing here gateway. So S3 service I want to access, VPC, the custom VPC that we have created today, and apart from that, routing table will be the private routing table, and policy is full access. So as soon as my endpoint will be created, you will see here, I will be able to see the list of bucket, right? You can see here. Now, if you want to create bucket, right? So what you can write here, AWS S3 make bucket. To create bucket, you can write MB S3 and where you want to make your bucket or create bucket. So S3 colon. So in S3 service, you want to create one file. Suppose I'm creating file with my name. So the bucket name should be unique globally. So if this name, the bucket name is not present, in that case, it will be created. Now you can see make bucket command is successful and this bucket is created. If you will write here AWS S3 ls, so you will see these two buckets are created. Now I want to remove some bucket, right? Suppose this bucket I want to remove. So what command I need to write? RB, AWS S3 RB, and the folder, like whatever bucket you want to delete. So you can see here remove bucket command is successful. Now if you will see ls, so only one bucket is present. Now if you want to delete this bucket also, so what you can write here, 24021325, something like that. Okay, so now if you will do ls, so you will not be able to see any bucket information here. Why? Because right now no bucket is created inside this S3 service. So that is it. I just wanted to talk about how endpoint work.